Welcome to Liberty Awakened. I am your host, Chris A. Patriot, and on today's Liberty Awakened, we're going to look at some ways to do some critical thinking, truth seeking, and take some steps that you may not have thought of before. Now, will this be the be all to end all? No. This is just the first look, first blush at a way to seek truth that you may have not have thought about before. Now, I also encourage any of you who have done some videos, series, or anything like this on this matter, please feel free to share them with us. In the description, there's our email address. Reach out and contact us, and we will get your work shared right here on Liberty Awaken. Or if you feel like you want to create a way that you use some tips, techniques, whatever it might be, tools, and want to demonstrate those, and want to just create a video and just have it put someplace, please feel free to contact us and we'll put your work right here on Liberty Awaken. Patriots, at times, the best thing that we can do in order to seek truth is to quit looking. Yeah, think about that thought for just a moment. Take a chance at just unplugging and stepping back and looking at other things. We at times get so immersed in so much information that I believe we become red pill blinded. And it's nothing nefarious, nothing that's done on purpose, but there are so many ways and so many avenues in which information is broadcast to us on a daily basis. We truthfully need to unplug, step back, and catch our breath. Because of the amount of information we get just from going to the grocery store, we can't even go to the end of the aisle of the grocery store to go to the next aisle without some type of commercial being played in front of us, some type of ad placed right there, smack dab in our faces, just inundating us nonstop. And when we're on that path to look for truth, when we're digging after facts and figures, whatever it might be, we get so immersed in what we're doing, sometimes we can miss, truthfully, the forest for the trees. Now, for today's presentation, I'll be honest with you. I spent yesterday going away from any type of information kind of on the subject we want to look at as an example of how to use the technique I want to present to you today. But I truthfully stayed away from those because I needed a moment to mentally catch my breath, just to say no. And it wasn't it that the presenters were going to give me information that was incorrect or was not believable. It was just that point where I needed that mental respite to say enough. Another way to look at it is in this manner. An athlete, you don't start running marathons right away at record times. You slowly, surely build up. You pace yourself. You figure out where's the best place to push it. Where's the best place to, lack of a better word, coast. As you can tell, I'm not a runner. If you ever see me running, please check what's behind me. I'm not an athlete in any way, shape, or form. About the only form I have is round. But anyhow, point being is, an athlete, anything that you do takes time. It takes that stamina that needs to be built up in order for you to keep going to achieve what you want. And the same thing has to happen as a truth seeker. We have to know ourselves. When is our mind so inundated with information that we really can't see the forest for the trees, that we're so overwhelmed that we really can't even think clearly, that we're so emotionally invested that we are missing some of the simplest things in order to pursue the avenues of truth? So I encourage you to take that time and just to pull back and just say, nope, not today. I'll get back in the fight tomorrow. And that's okay. That's all right. And sometimes it's just the fact that you need to do something else to allow yourselves to clear enough so that your emotions aren't involved. Because, folks, if we fight these battles off of emotions, we're never going to win them. Now, hear me clearly. Passion is one thing. Emotions are something different. I'm passionate about our nation. I'm passionate about making us a better nation, to ensure the flames of liberty burn bright. I am passionate about that. And sometimes my passion coupled with my emotions can get the better of me. And I have to honestly say, oh, nope, whoa back. Slow up, Buttercup. You're really pushing it too far, too fast, too quick. And the best example we've got of that, turn on your mainstream news. And I don't care what it is. Okay? I don't care what channel, CNN, NBC, whoever it is. And they put opposite viewpoints on any subject on there. And basically the way I like to look at it is if you've got grade schoolers standing on either side of the street screaming at each other saying, mine is better, I know better. What truthfully have we learned from that? Their ability to push their talking points? Is that necessarily the truth? Is it necessarily gaining us any further to actually go about and learn what is happening? Or does it get to the point where we're so overwhelmed with just looking at this great schoolyard behavior, whatever you want to call it, that we just turn it out altogether? And then we become apathetic and we start to do nothing? That is the danger of being digitally overloaded. And that is kind of where we've gotten to until recently, when many of us have decided to say enough is enough, and we started to push back. We became apathetic for many reasons, but I think some of it was the inundation of information was so overwhelming, not necessarily truthful information, that we just began to say, they're not listening to us. Well, folks, they have to listen to us. We are the people. We are the ones that put them in power, and we are the ones that have to hold them accountable. And if we aren't prepared to battle, they will win. So I'm asking you to figure out ways to strengthen yourself so that you can battle better, smarter, and actually argue reasonably. We've lost that ability to reasonably argue, to discourse, to wrap our minds around tough subjects, tough things, and to approach them in a manner that we are critically looking at them, that we are critically deciphering them, and critically looking for best possible outcomes and solutions without giving away our moral compass, our moral center. And it can be done. It can be done. And yes, there are certain things we have to hold fast on. There are certain things that are just, to me, there are things I will not budge on, because that is my moral compass. That is my cornerstone. But we also have to be willing to listen to all sides of an argument so that we can talk to one another. We don't have to scream at one another. We can talk to one another. And we also have to be willing to say, you know what? At this moment in time, on this point, on this matter, we simply disagree. And we have to just walk away for that battle, for that moment. And that's okay. But we can respectfully disagree, walk away, and hold ourselves strong. Because there are certain things we just cannot give in on. We cannot allow the continuation of the ripping at the fabric of our Constitution. We cannot continue to allow our liberties to be stripped away from us in hopes that, no, they'll protect us. No, if liberty is gone, there is no protection for we the people. So we have to hold fast on that. But, as I said, going into this, we have to prepare ourselves daily for battle, and we have to figure out those moments when we have to take time to rest and to collect ourselves so that we can seek further truth, seek further knowledge, and look at things in a different light so that we can keep fanning the flames of liberty. So, one of the things I want to teach you today is something I do quite often with those that I work with. I work with students, and at times I spend a lot of time helping them to figure out, and lack of a better way to put it, study better, smarter. And one of the techniques that I use is I tell them, which sometimes doesn't go over well with their instructors, but anyhow, I tell them not to read the chapter that they're assigned. And I'll tell you to do the same thing. When we have that hot button, or we have that moment, let's say like Syria right now, okay? And that's what I avoided yesterday, was any information dealing with Syria in any shape or form. Because I needed a moment to collect my wits and my critical thinking skills before I started taking in information. Because if we just take in information and we're just sitting there as a sponge and not gnawing on it, not tearing it apart or having a way to tear it apart, then it's just like clanging gongs and noisy cymbals. It really means not a whole lot of anything, and we're really not gaining much, but we've got all this great information, but we don't really have any basis to know, is it good information? Is it bad information? Or is it just noise? Is it just more feeding the narrative that we're supposed to buy into blindly without thought? And how can we do that? How can we not blindly buy into the narrative? Well, I'm thinking this technique and this skill can be one of those things. It's something that I try to do as often as possible. So we're looking at Syria, and I would ask this question: what the hell is going on? Now, that may not be the way that you want to start out your question, and that's fine. That's great, but I want you to do it in a manner where not focusing solely at the center of what happened, but trying to do it as broadly and as outside the box as you can get. So we know we have an issue in Syria. So we're going to begin to formulate questions, because if we start to write questions and we start to put questions to one side, I tell my students, then you can begin to go through and read a chapter. So what they'll do is they'll start with the chapter, the assigned reading they've got, they'll flip through it, they'll see what the subject is about, and then I have them write questions on a piece of paper or whatever, notepad, however it works for them best. And I ask you to do that same thing. Before you begin delving into what recent event happened, start formulating questions so that when you dive into the subject matter, you're going into it not only looking at what is there, beginning to answer the questions you have in regards to this. And what your questions may be completely different than anybody else, but that's okay, because you have certain things that you're looking for. And in seeking that truth, and you begin to talk with others, we can no longer then have to talk to each other about talking points. We're looking at the sides of the argument on the subject at hand in a variety of different avenues, and maybe because somebody looked at it from this point of view, or somebody looked at it from that point of view, or this or that, whatever it may be, it'll begin to put into place pieces of the puzzle that you hadn't thought about, that were maybe still questions that came from your looking at the information. Because that's the other part of it, is you don't just write questions and you begin to search and answer just those questions. There may be other questions that come up as you're searching, as you're looking, and you need to put those onto one side, either as supplements to the first questions you asked, or completely new avenues for you to pursue. The hope and the idea behind this is to keep us from being tunnel focused, to keep us from going down rabbit holes that we may not be able to find our way out of, because we've dug down so deep, we have missed, again, the forest for the trees. So I'm going to give you just a cursory way of looking at Syria in ways that you may not have thought about, ways that you may not be thinking about it before you actually delve into the matter fully, or even further, or even if that you're already into the matter, that you pull back for a moment and say, okay, these are some questions that I have. And again, if writing them on a piece of paper works for you, great. If putting them on a computer works for you, great. If it's only mental notes that you need, great. But again, it's the question and answering part as you're just looking for the information that will really get your mind to working. Because if your mind is only used in one avenue, where you're just a sponge absorbing information, really you're not using it for its full capabilities. You're not fully pursuing the avenues that are there at your disposal to use. So, first question I have, other than what the hell is going on, because that's just a general overlook of the situation. And I've asked this question in regards to a number of situations that have happened, whether it be on the local level, where I live, eat, and play, to the national level. That I would go with this next question would be, and this is me looking at the situation in Syria: why did we involve France and Great Britain? Now, the other part that I work with and try to get people to understand is, don't look for the negative first. So if you're to write this on a piece of paper, you'd write down why the involvement of France and Great Britain. And then I would break it down into France. And then underneath France, I put positive. I put negative. And then I put, after that, B, Great Britain. Again, 1, 2 would be positive, negative. Because if you look for the positive reason to involve France, they may affect the positive reason that we're involving Great Britain or vice versa. But if we only focus on the negative parts, we may be missing part of what's happening here, getting a broader view, not being sucked into a narrative that's being sold to us, and begin to question things on a different plane in a different manner than we thought of before. Okay? So that's one question. And trust me, there could be others. And please, if there's questions, if you're starting to think about this technique as I'm presenting it to you, put them in the comments. Or if you've got positive and negative reasons for any of these questions that are brought up, say with Great Britain and France, put those in the comments. This is how you begin to critically think. This is how you begin to look beyond the narrative and really see what is happening. Because at times, and I don't care who the elected leaders are, they're great at doing what I like to call the Wizard of Oz effect. They get us from peeking behind the curtain to see where the wizard is actually at. I'm only using this metaphorically. And so we're sold off believing the wonderful things that are happening, and we're skipping down the golden trail, but not really seeing who's pulling the strings behind, because we're not thinking beyond the initial part of what is there. We're only buying the narrative that they sold us. So another question, as we look at what the hell is going on in Syria. What effect, what ramifications, how might this impact, however you want to use, whatever terminology you want to use, Russia and Iran? And again, break them down. What positive impacts will this have on Russia? What negative impacts will this have with Russia? What positive impacts will this have with Iran? What negative impacts will this have with Iran? If you've noticed, the one part that I haven't put in here yet, Syria. And the reason I did that, it's because when we have a major event happen, whatever the major event is, I want you to think about it like a calm pond. And you take a big giant rock, boulder, whatever, and you chuck it out there in the middle of that pond. When that boulder, when that rock hits the center of that pond, we focus on the splash. We see the water go up. We see all the cool things that will happen when you put something large into something calm like that. And it just, all of our attention, all of our focus is drawn to that center, to that nexus. But what we miss, again, the forest for the trees, the ripples. How far out do those ripples go? How far out do they continue? That energy is dispersed, and it just keeps going further and further and further away from the center. But we don't necessarily see that because we're looking at the coolness that just happened, the sound that was made, whatever is going on, but we're missing the ripples that are happening away from the center of the nexus. So what other questions might we ask that don't deal with Syria, Russia, Iran, France, Great Britain? What other ripple effects might this have? Will this have any impact on other things that are happening within our world? And I honestly, doing this cold and live right now, recording this, I have no script in front of me. I would tell you, I don't know yet. So that might be one of those questions. What other unintended consequences or what intended consequences, you can ask both questions, as two separate questions, will this have? List them positively and then list them negatively. So what positive impact might this have? What negative impact might this have? Another way to ask it, but again, I would still do a positive and negative to even to those questions, because sometimes negative consequences can actually be a positive. Not always, but sometimes, okay? My point is, don't box ourselves in when we're thinking. Trying to think as broadly as possible when looking at situations. And yes, at some point, you do want to write some questions in regards to the nexus, what we believe is the cause. But my way of doing it might be a little different than yours. My question would basically be, what the hell is Trump thinking? Now, I support our president. I have no problem with our president, but it doesn't mean I will not question him. It doesn't mean that I will not hold him accountable. It doesn't mean I will say, no, I'm sorry, Mr. President, in this moment, in this decision, because I have looked at this from many different ways. And the way that I am seeing the truth that I'm seeking, I'm sorry, you are wrong. And that's okay, because we have to hold our leaders accountable. We have to make sure they are doing what is in the best interest of our nation to ensure liberty. At this moment in time, am I telling you President Trump was wrong? No, I don't know. I haven't fully invested to seek answers to see what is going on. I haven't looked at the positive or the negative reasons why President Trump made this decision. Then we also have to ask, why? What forced President Trump to make this decision? Positive, negative reasons of why. Honestly, there are endless questions that we should be asking in regards to every situation that happens within our nation, whether it be domestically or dealing with the foreign components, because we don't operate in a vacuum. Our nation impacts other nations, and other nations impact us. Our leaders impact us. We, the people, impact us. What we allow to happen at the local level eventually trickles up to the federal level. So what are you looking at the local level to start to ask, what the hell is going on? Are your county commissioners, are your city leaders, are they doing what is in the best interest of we the people? Are you holding them accountable? And I hope that this truth-seeking technique, as we're fleshing it out, begins to help you look at things in a more diverse manner. It's okay to question what is going on, because it begins to help us to seek and to find different ways of finding things, different ways of seeking them out. And here at Liberty Awaken, this isn't going to be our first opportunity to look at ways to seek truth. It's not going to be the only way in which that we look at getting answers that'll best make our nation better, best make our state better, best make our city better. We'll be doing other types of ways to seek truth, some other different ways of looking at it. So again, if you have techniques, tools, tips, ideas, whatever you want to call them, please comment in the comments below. Ask that you would like and share and subscribe, because without the collection of patriots, without the gathering of patriots, we cannot keep the flames of liberty burning bright. Thank you for spending time with me today. I hope this was helpful. And once again, please comment, like, and subscribe. I am Chris, a Patriot, and this is Liberty Awaken.